All right, welcome into the basketball show as we get rolling into another week of SEC play. A lot to talk about with Johni Broome, a lot to talk about with the Auburn team the week ahead. Same for Alabama. Alabama coming off the big road win at Texas A&M. What is happening here?
Oh my word, fireworks, Dunaway. You're starting the show with fireworks.
I don't know. I've got something on that I don't know, but fireworks. It's been that way in the SEC all year long. Really amazing little technology there. Things I didn't even know I had. A lot to get to. She's Taylor Korn. I'm Jim Dunaway. We'll just leave that in there. We'll just let it roll and think of the sign of the gods that our podcast is hot right now and is growing leaps and bounds on every day. And we appreciate the support so much. Um, Little T, I'm going to start off with I know you've been working your sources. I've been working my sources. Auburn's actually put out a report, which sounds a lot like what my sources were saying. I assume what your sources were saying. H. Petty was one of about 20 people in our open mailbag, and in this edition, as always, mailbag, who wanted to know Johni Broome's injury. How serious is it? We'll start there. Johni Broome, you tell me what you know. I'll fill in the gaps.
That no surgery will be required, which is obviously a positive sign. I feel like at this point, that's the best news that you could ask for, all things considered, or the best update, and that it's an ankle sprain. And that leaves room for so much speculation or imagination because an ankle sprain can be nothing or it can be, a couple month injury that just is lagging and continues to bother you. So I feel like ankle sprain is just a very broad category of injury because there can be so many levels of severity and they haven't really given many details about that yet. Um, and I'm guessing it's going to be a day by day updated evaluation. I don't know how long to expect him to be out to be out for, to be completely honest.
From what I was told, low ankle sprain, no surgery needed. On the same page there. No ligament tears, because if there was a tear, you need to go in there and reconnect those things, and that would be a longer issue. And rehab starts as soon as they can start the rehab process. You can start some electronics and some, icing and heating and all of that. And then at some point, you will start slowly putting some weight back on it. Eventually, they have these cool pools that you can run in, where you don't put any weight on it and you just keep working your stamina and stuff like that. But it'll be a process to get Johni Broome back. But at least from the people I talked to, best case scenario, and they thought it looked a lot more severe because all of his body weight, the guy I was talking to said all of his body weight was on that foot. And when he rolled it, it was all right there. And he's a big guy, and they were fearful it was going to be something that could end the season. I'll say what I said again last night, little T, and I think people don't always understand this about basketball. And we try to do it in football. We just can't do it as much in football. Like if Auburn went out, and let's say Johni Broome missed 6 games, and if they lost all 6 games, people would be like, "Oh no, is Auburn going to miss the NCAA tournament or this or that?" And the answer to that just is not the case. If he comes back healthy, Auburn will be judged by the team they are with Johni Broome, which, not that those 6 games will mean nothing, but they will be weighted with the fact that they didn't have their star on, and that's for every basketball team that goes through that. For instance, Texas A&M did not have their number one player when they played Alabama last night. So when they get to Selection Sunday and they start looking at the whole resume that Texas A&M has put together, the Alabama loss on their home floor last night will not impact them as much as if their number one player had played in that game. That's the way basketball does things. They play a lot of basketball games, 30 or so games, and they take every little factor into it on Selection Sunday. So whatever happens with Johni Broome and however long he's out, if he comes back healthy, that's the team Auburn will be judged on, and I don't think their seating would be impacted to the point that they would be anywhere close to the bubble, even if it was a disaster while he's out. I will use this as an opportunity to say what I think could be one positive about this. And you think, Jim, that's got to be crazy, right? I mean, you go ahead and say that, Jim. That's got to be crazy. What's a positive with Janai Broome being out of there? Go ahead, say it.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I don't disagree.
Yeah, there's a positive in that if you go out and you win some basketball games, and this team is capable without Johni Broome. I think they're a top 10 basketball team without Johni Broome. So if they come out and win basketball games without Johni Broome here, then I think they have an opportunity to build something inside of them on a night when Janai's not having a good game, or if he gets into foul trouble, that they'll have this to call back on when they get into the NCAA tournament. And I think this is a chance for this team to build another part of their DNA that could help them win a championship down the road. Am I crazy to think that?
No, I don't think so at all. And I think what you just said, if he's not having a good game, assuming he comes back fully healthy and things are as usual, and he's struggling one game. I mean, last night or yesterday afternoon, he wasn't having his best game. And I think it will just build the confidence because there are a lot of guys that will see more minutes with him being out that typically aren't on the court much because Janai plays so many minutes. So I think it's a great opportunity for some of those guys to get more comfortable. And then the guys that are typically starting and playing with Janai to, gel with a guy that they might not be in a rotation with as frequently, maybe in, trash minutes of a game at the very end of the second half. But I think that this gives them an opportunity to build confidence, like you said, in themselves without him.
Taylor Korn, Jim Dunaway, brought to you by mybookie.ag. Mybookie.ag, you see it scrolling at the bottom. Promo code next round. Sign up and enjoy all the gaming that you can get both in the casino, but also in wagering on college basketball the rest of the year. Also, roback.com, promo code TNR20. Taylor, I will ask you right here, what players need to step up for the Auburn Tigers? Trent and Chris both asking in the mailbag today about different players. So I'll ask you, clean slate. Tell me somebody's got to step up.
I think that Chaney Johnson and Dylan Cardwell are both going to be very, very important over however many games he's out for. And one of the things that I think they both need to focus on is staying out of foul trouble. When you have Janai in the game and Dylan has 4 fouls, it's not ideal, but it's not going to be as detrimental as Dylan having 4 fouls while Janai's out. So I think that that's one thing that they're really going to have to clean up. And one thing that gives me more confidence, makes me feel a little bit better about the situation is the Georgia State game when Janai got hurt in the first 2 minutes, very, very early on. Chaney Johnson stepped up. He's shown so much improvement from last season to this season that I think he has the potential to be a very impactful player on this team. And so I think he has it in him to fill a little bit of the gap that Auburn's going to have without Janai. Is he Johni Broome? No, no one on this team is Johni Broome. He's the best player on the team. But I think that Chaney has it in him. I think that we've seen spark from him. We've seen him step up, not as consistently as one might like. But again, once he's on the court more with Janai out, once he gets more comfortable into more of a rhythm, then I think that he could be really good for this team. But something that's very interesting, there's a Twitter account called CBB Analytics, and they use a lot of the net metrics to put together this data. And they posted a screenshot of some rankings with the most efficient, like quote unquote, 3-man lineups. And Auburn has 9 in the top. There's probably 20 on here that were included in the screenshot. And the top 3, which this was mind blowing to me, did not include Janai. The top 3 are Miles Kelly, Chad Baker Mazzara, and Dylan Cardwell. That's the first one. 2, Denver Jones, Miles Kelly, Dylan Cardwell. 3, Denver Jones, Miles Kelly, Chad. And then
Yeah.
the next all include Janai, or the majority of them include Janai. But there is a lot of productivity, high level of basketball being played. The net rankings like a lot of other guys on this team, in addition to Janai.
Yeah. Well, you have you have H. Petty and Trent and Chris asking about that. Dylan and Cheney's a great answer. I'm gonna go in a different direction. Dylan and Cheney will fill his position on the court. Dylan is the
Mm-hmm.
rim protector. Cheney will give you a little bit of the offense. They ran a lot of offense through Janai. That'll change a little bit. I think in his absence, Chad Baker Mazzara has to go up to another level. He
Mm-hmm.
becomes, to me, the guy everybody will look to. He becomes the heartbeat of the team. He's already been the engine on this basketball team, right? He's the juice. He's the electricity. I think now he becomes the guy everybody will look to in big moments. He becomes the leader, the captain. To me, Janai was the captain, and the captain's down for a few games. We'll find out how many games, but until the captain comes back, somebody else has to take the wheel. And I think that's Chad Baker Mazzara. And I think he's up to the challenge. And I look forward to seeing him in that role of, doesn't have to be the leading scorer every night, but maybe he will be. But he's got to be that leader. He's got to be the guy that sort of controls the guys now. Janai was that guy. I think it's Chad Baker Mazzara until he comes back, and I look for him to step up as well. This is the basketball show. You're hopefully catching this on a Monday morning or a Monday afternoon or evening or Tuesday before the Tuesday night games. Auburn is at home with tricky Mississippi State. Alabama's at home with tricky Ole Miss. Three unbeaten SEC teams left. Three of those are Auburn, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Alabama and Ole Miss playing each other Tuesday. We'll talk more Tide basketball in just a second and more SEC in general coming up. But Hunter asked the question, what is Auburn's record without Janai? 4 games and then 6 games. He doesn't give a length, but I'm going to go if he's out 4 games and if he's out 6 games. Okay. So Hunter wants to know the record. So here are the 4 games, and then I'll give you the other two. But the 4 games are Mississippi State at home, at Georgia, Tennessee at home, and then LSU. So what is your record for Auburn in those 4 games with no Janai Broome?
The games that I was, which I think this is probably common sense, but looking through the upcoming games, the ones that I was concerned about in general, the ones that I thought could potentially be losses prior to the injury, are the only ones I'm really concerned about after the fact, which I could be completely wrong. I think that they can beat Mississippi, and a benefit to Auburn is that their toughest opponents they get at home. They get Tennessee at home, they get Mississippi State at home, and then a little bit uh, later on down the schedule, they get Florida at home. In my opinion, those will be the three most challenging teams that they will play in the stretch of the full 6 games, and they get their most competitive opponents at home, which and that means something. That means something,
Oh
and
yeah.
I think that the players they thrive off the energy, that gives them a little extra juice. I think in that 4 game, which I'm probably being a little too optimistic here, the game that I think that they would most likely drop is Tennessee. I think that they can win the other three. I mean, I think that they can win all of them even without Janai, but if I were to say 4-1 over the next four, I would say beat Mississippi State, win at Georgia, or lose to Tennessee at home, and then win at LSU.
I have them possibly 4-0, 3-1. The only way it's 2-2 is this very first game with
Yep.
Mississippi State. When you've got to, you're still figuring it out. Okay, we practiced it. We had a short turnaround from Saturday. We found out he's hurt on Saturday. Now it's Sunday, Monday. Now it's shoot around on Tuesday. We're playing Tuesday night against Mississippi State. That's a quick turnaround. We get out there and boy, we're not handling this very well. And this is a really good Mississippi State team. They're physical. They play great defense. You could lose that one,
Yeah.
but I didn't put it as a loss column. We talked about it for a couple of weeks. That's gonna be a tricky game. But if they win that one, you know, I think they go 3-1. I think they either lose to Mississippi State, beat Tennessee, win the other one, they end up 3-1. Stretch it out to 6 games at Ole Miss and home to Oklahoma. I don't think they lose either one of those. So I think if Janai has gone 6 games, I think Auburn's worst case scenario is they're 4-2. And there's potential to be 5-1 or 6-0. Is that stupid?
No, I don't. I really don't think so. And I think one of the things that's been talked about since the beginning of the season, and we've talked about it a couple of times, is depth. And the depth of this team is going to be tested right now. And I don't think that that's crazy at all. One thing that will be very beneficial is their first game without him, again, is at home, because say they don't start great. They're a little sloppy. things don't look, they're not looking anything like a well-oiled machine. Getting down and coming back at home is easier than getting down and coming back on the road in a hostile environment, playing a conference game. So I think that that will play a major role if they were to struggle at the start. It might take them a second to click.
Okay, before we get to the back half of our questions, oh, by the way, Vern Funquist, our buddy Chris Marler, who does a lot of work for a lot of folks, including our own cover Crimson on the other side, he's like, Janai has to be back, right, for that first Alabama game. Um, that's 9 games. That's the ninth game. He would have to miss 8 games for the Alabama game to be his first game back. So we still have 8 basketball games before that first matchup between Auburn and Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So, boy, with everything I've heard, I expect him to be back by then. But the guys at the Field of 68, I was listening to them last night before they went to bed, about around midnight. I think they were live, and they were talking about just have him healthy for the last week of the season, shake off a little rust, go to the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament, and it's no harm, no foul that they are still good enough to go where this team would have gone anyway. Just getting back, so there's no rush to get him back. So it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be 4 games, doesn't have to be 6, doesn't have to be 8, don't have to be back for that first Alabama game. Just get him healthy and get him back. All right, enough of the Jedi Broome talk. We'll talk everything else in basketball. Let's hand out our game balls from yesterday first. Auburn and Alabama game balls from you, Taylor Korn. Where are you going?
Auburn, I'm going to Hod Pettiford. He led the team in scoring. He had 15 points. He only had one turnover, which is something that he has struggled with in the past. And he made two detrimental free throws at the end of the game, which we touched on last night. I just thought that that was very impressive coming from a freshman. Game on the line, on the road, and it's you standing there at the free throw line. He hasn't been in a large amount of these big games, in high school maybe, but it's different. Playing in college is different. He doesn't have a ton of experience. I mean, he has 16 games. Um, so I was very impressed by him and his composure at the end of that game, his maturity. And then for Alabama, I'm going Mark Sears. This is also something that we touched on last night, but he didn't score his first points in until 6 minutes into the game and ended up with 27 points. He was one of the very few that only missed one free throw. He went 9 of 10 from the free throw line.
Right.
And there were a lot of missed free throws last night. Only had one foul. I just thought it was a solid performance. He wasn't super productive at the beginning of the game in terms of putting points up on the board, but he ended with 27 points. You can't complain about that.
Yeah. I'm going to go with a guy. I feel like I give it to him all the time for Auburn. I'm going to go with Miles Kelly. Couple of big threes, especially that one that tied the game at 59-59. Pettiford's the answer there, but I didn't want to duplicate you. So I went with Miles Kelly. And for Alabama, I'm going to go with Chris Youngblood. He continues to um, get his sea legs back, get his stamina back. And he did it both shooting the ball well, but I thought he played great defense. Alabama attacked the offensive boards and continued to get second and third shots on trips down the floor. And Youngblood was part of that. Youngblood and Reed was part of a group there that scored double digits in 18, 15, 11 minutes of play. So I'm going to go Chris Youngblood for Alabama in that big win. Again, Tuesday night action is what we're leading up to now. Home game at 6 o'clock, Neville Arena, Mississippi State and Auburn. Taylor will be there. I've got Ole Miss, Alabama, 2 of 3 unbeaten teams left in Tuscaloosa, also 6 o'clock. We'll do a live post game after that. A few more questions here before we're done with this basketball show, the basketball show from the next round. Tide Nut wants to know, are we surprised about Aden Holloway's success? Aden Holloway's success, has it surprised you? He continues to get better and better at Alabama.
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, he was a McDonald's All-American coming out of high school. For some, there's a reason that he had that accolade coming out of high school. He was talented. Something that I looked at and thought was interesting was he's averaging a similar number of points up until this point in the season that he was through his first 16 games, 15 games, 16 games at Auburn. And we didn't really see him start to fall. I don't know if fall off is the right word, but become less productive offensively until late into January towards I don't know if that would be considered the midpoint of conference play,
Yeah,
but
midpoint of the season though. We're 15 games in. If you play 30, it's about midway. Yeah.
yeah, so I guess about halfway through, he was extremely productive at the start of the season at Auburn. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. But from the end of January throughout the rest of the season, he only had one double digit gain. He only scored in double figures one time. So I don't know. I don't know what happened there. But I also feel like it's normal for players to make progress from year one to year two. That's what's expected. That's normal. So no, it does not surprise me at all that he's been successful. We knew he could shoot the ball. It just the consistency cut off halfway through the season last year.
Yeah, it surprises me because, I saw the fall that
Yeah.
he had near the end at Auburn, and he didn't look like he had any confidence at all. And I just wondered, with all these players pushing for playing time in Tuscaloosa, if he would melt under the pressure and if
Mm.
he would be able to keep up and get the minutes he's getting. His minutes are going up, his scoring is going up, and it does surprise me, Tide Nut. DC Stith writes in. Favorite place to cover a game other than Auburn and Alabama? We don't travel for basketball like we do football, so we're not at road arenas. So I'm going to change D Stiff's question to this. Where do you think is the toughest place for your team, Auburn or Alabama, to win on the road? Just from a fan perspective or an outsider or a media person, Taylor, where do you think the toughest home court is other than Neville or Coleman Coliseum?
I think Tennessee is a hard place to win. I think Kentucky's a hard place to win just because of the name on the jersey to begin with.
Right?
But you touched on this last night when we were live after the Alabama game because of how the officiating went in the Alabama Texas A&M game. But when you're playing in Knoxville at Tennessee, they tend to get a lot of calls.
They
So
do.
because of
Yes.
that and that alone, Tennessee.
Dating back to the 21-22 season, Tennessee is 55-5 at home. 55-5. 9-0 so far this season. In 22, they were 16-0. They lost 3 in 23. They lost 2 in 24. 9-0 so far this season. Thompson Bowling was my answer. Rupp Arena was my second answer, just like you there. Arkansas used to be, they've got to get their players back, but when they're rocking, underrated for me, and I've been to a few games here, is the Hump in Starkville. Boy, it's like we're doing a Mississippi State podcast. We talk about Mississippi State positively every show.
We do.
But that place, when you go there and it's packed, it's a big game. It is a tough place to win. How many C Hoops wants to know how many Elite Eight teams are in the SEC in your opinion? All right. It seemed like we had this question earlier this year, elite Final Four team. So Elite Eight, that's one step less from getting there. That's winning three tournament games and being the winner goes to the Final Four of that game. How many Elite Eight teams do you think we have in the SEC, Taylor?
Four, I think Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee. I would not be shocked by any of those teams being in the Elite Eight.
Or the Final Four at that
Or
point,
for
right?
yeah, or further.
I go one further. I go Kentucky. I put Kentucky in there. So that's five. And then right on that next line, tell me if you can see any of these making it to the Elite Eight. Okay, not the Final Four, the Elite Eight. Texas A&M, who was number 10 until they got beat last night.
Maybe how long is their injury gonna last?
Yeah, he's coming back. You can tell the
He's
way
coming
he's
back.
acting on the sidelines. Mississippi State.
I feel like like you said, we've been propagandists for Mississippi State, and I
Right.
think that they are one of those sneaky good teams. But because of how talented the conference is this year, I don't. I feel like a lot of the all the other teams that we've talked about up until this point will hold up and fare better than
Ole
Mississippi
Miss,
State.
Ole Miss is still unbeaten, and they're a ranked team, Elite Eight.
I don't think so.
Chris
For no
Beard was at
reason
that
other than
Final
I just
Four when you're he was with Texas Tech at that Final Four when Auburn was there. He's a good coach.
I I don't
Nope.
think I haven't been as nearly as impressed with I mean, well, it's hard to be impressed by anybody because of how good these teams are within
Georgia.
the conference.
Here
No,
comes
I think
Georgia.
they've had two great wins back to back. I'll be interested to see how they fare because I believe their next two games are Auburn and Alabama. Is that correct?
Alabama's got Ole Miss. Auburn plays Georgia on Saturday.
Yeah.
Seems like Alabama does play them the week after next.
Okay,
Yes.
so they have one team in between, and then Auburn will play at Georgia Saturday, then Alabama sometime in the near future. Can
Last
if
question. Oh, go ahead.
I feel like if they can keep challenging the teams at the top of the conference consistently, I'll have more confidence in them. But as of right now, no.
Last questions from JJ. Do you basically ever want to punk people by telling them that your dad created the band Korn? You do spell your last name. Your family does, like the metal band from the 90s or 80s, 90s, Korn, Korn.
No,
This
I
pops
feel
up
like
a
I need to
lot.
clear this. This is probably the most frequent question that I'm asked everywhere, all the time, randomly on social media. If I'm at a store to where you have to give your name, my response is always Taylor Korn, Korn. That's just it's muscle memory now. That's how I respond, and it never fails. The response is always, "You
They're
know
always,
that band?" Yeah, I'm like, I mean, I am aware that they exist. Have I ever listened to their music? No. And I'm not related to them. I'm not. I feel like that the air needs to be cleared. I don't know. There really aren't many people with this last name, but I don't know if any of the people in the band have last name. I know nothing about the band. I'm sure they're great. I'm sure they're very pleasant people. I don't know anything about them, and to my knowledge, I'm not related to any of them. And my dad, I know for a fact that my dad is not in the band. My dad is not a band member. He works at Regions, and he has never been part of a rock and roll band.
just so that you know, they had their R turned around backwards to make it
Backwards.
more devil worshiping. Uh,
Oh,
not really. I'm kidding. Just made it look weird. They're from Bakersfield, California. They were formed in 1993 by Monkey, Munky Schaefer, Phil
nope.
D, David Silver. Nobody in the band's last name is Korn. Um, how did they come up with the band name? Dun, dun, dun,
Great
dun.
question.
Great question. Nobody in the band is actually named Corn, so no
Okay, so
relations
they're not
there.
my family.
Yep,
They're
not
not my
related.
family. But I have
In,
one more side question topic.
is it about Corn the band?
No,
Okay, go ahead.
it's about basketball. There was a quote from Rick Barnes that I'm sure everyone's seen. He was, I believe, asked about Chaz Lanier post game, and his quote was, "I took him out the first play of the second. I took him out the first play of the second half because he didn't shoot the ball. That play was designed for that shot, and I told him, if you're not going to do what you're getting paid to do, you sit over here because he's getting paid to do that, paid to shoot the ball." Someone tagged me in it and said, "You think this was too harsh? It felt appropriate to me. He was much more respectful than Mick Cronin, which wouldn't be saying much. Want to hear thoughts." What do you think?
Well, I'm just hearing that, but they are being paid now,
Yeah.
and I would say this. I would say that we trumpet Nate Oates for taking out players who pass up open 3-point shots because he wants them to shoot the three. He wants them to shoot the threes. And just last night in the game against Texas A&M, he pulled out Chris Youngblood, who I gave the game ball to, because he passed up a three. They got late in the clock, and they ended up shooting a worse three than he passed up on. And as soon as they could, he was substituted out. There was a few laughs as he was making his way to the bench, but basically it was because Nate says, "I told you to shoot, man. It was wide open. You passed that shot." So, we're trumpeting one guy who is saying shoot, 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 and we're saying who wouldn't want to play for that guy, right? I mean, he's telling me to shoot. Everybody wants to shoot.
Right.
So it's a positive for Nate Oates. And if it's the first play of a half and the play is designed for you, then it's mutiny, man. You're deciding you're not we've drawn this play up, boom, 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 shoot, and you don't shoot. I got to take you out of the game. It'd be like me designing a reverse pass and you decide not to throw it to the open receiver. In football, I'd
Yeah.
be like, come sit your ass down. And if you're worried about the phrasing of the fact that, hey, you're getting paid to take that shot, well, we're getting paid to take that shot now. I
Yeah.
mean, it's part of it. So
He's
you got to
saying
do what the coach says.
he's saying the quiet part loud.
That's right.
This is the stuff that everyone's thinking, but then once someone says it on in front of a microphone, it's chaos. So no, I mean, I think he's not lying.
That's
Everything
right.
that he's saying is factual, and he's saying what everyone else is thinking, I would
Oh, that's right.
assume.
And not the worst thing that, if fans understood the game, I guarantee you the fans were saying worse things than come sit down over here. This is where the people who don't shoot sit over here. And you got
Right.
to listen, the coach's best teaching tool has always been the bench, right? It's always the bench. It's
Yeah.
either you do it the way you're supposed to do it or you sit on the bench. And it's
Hmm.
harder to do now because of the transfer portal, but still if you're going to win a championship, you still have to have the power of the bench.
The
And I
power of the
respect
bench.
coaches. I respect coaches that use the power of the bench.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yep. All right. That's the basketball show. This episode leading into the Tuesday night games. I hope you enjoy it. Tell people about it. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, and share it with people. And send us comments so that we can get better at this, but also questions that helps us on our Sunday edition like this one when we do nothing but mailbag questions. And join us after every live Auburn or Alabama game, like we'll do Tuesday night. We'll do a combo Auburn Alabama postgame show on Tuesday night. Join us for comments about the game you just watched. It's a fun way to enjoy basketball season with that lady right there, Taylor Korn. I'm Jim Dunaway. Have a great week, Taylor. I'll see
You
you.
too.
Oh, I'll see you at work
Tomorrow.
in a few minutes.